As martial arts were in their nascent stages, monstrous and exotic beasts threatened the very existence of human warriors, forcing them to surrender and retreat. But then Luan's consciousness traversed time and space, transporting him 10,000 years ahead in a dream world where the most rudimentary of physical training techniques had evolved into a highly advanced form, thousands of times more effective than before. In this distant future, Lucian discovered martial arts scriptures that had been lost to time. The art civilization had peaked in those 10,000 years, but tragically, humanity was no more to carry on the tradition. Lucian became the sole inheritor of this ancient legacy. The story unfolds in a world ravaged by a catastrophe. Once the beautiful planet lay in ruins and a gaping hole within the heavens from which a legion of monsters and creatures poured forth. The traces of humanity had long since vanished, leaving behind nothing but a barren wasteland. Amidst the desolation, however, there stood a lone figure, a man of immense power and unshakable conviction. He stood before the colossal creature with a calm demeanor, his hand held firmly behind his back, with otherworldly energy coursing through his veins. The man's eyes blazed in bright light, and with a swift, fluid motion he unleashed a devastating blast, completely annihilating anything in his way. Lucian jolted awake in the middle of class, his eyes blurry and unfocused. The taunting laughter of his classmates echoed in his ears. Even the teacher sneered at him with contempt. The teacher pointed an accusatory finger at Lucian, his voice dripping with disdain, claiming that no one will ever hire Lucian as a bricklayer, since the basic requirement of blood energy level is 0.8 for a bricklayer. As the class finally ended, Lucian's friend Ming approached him with concern for his well-being. He offered to take Lucian to the internet cafe and treat him to some snacks and games, hoping to lift his spirits. But Lucian was too drained from the constant nightmare that had been bothering him for quite some time. Unbeknownst to Lucian, fate had conspired to transport him into this isekai. He had been a diligent student, focused on acing his university entrance exam, but now he had to face an entirely different test of survival. Lucian couldn't help but notice the similarities between his old world and this new one. The only difference was the incredible level of martial arts that existed in this world. As Lucian gazed upon the giant screen broadcasting the recent victory of the 8th Legion, successfully defending another wave of monsters, just then his reverie was shattered by the sight of a delivery woman carrying an enormous stack of packages with effortless ease. Lucian couldn't believe his eyes and envied her power. The sun was slowly sinking into the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city as Lucian trudged his way back to his old apartment. His eyes fell on his mother in the living room, tenderly applying medicinal patches to his father's back. Despite the physical pain, his parents' faces lit up at the sight of their son. His father quickly got dressed, but the bandages and patches on his body betrayed the immense effort he had put in to provide for his family. With a gentle smile, Lucian suggested that his father invests in an acupuncture machine to alleviate his pain and promote better circulation. But his father, ever the stoic and strong-willed, simply flexed his bicep and joked that he was made of steel and could withstand any pain. Suddenly, his father took out 2 small containers, which he presented to Lucian. It was a new supplement that cost a staggering $20,000, a fortune for a family like theirs. Overwhelmed by his father's selfless gesture, Lucian struggled to hold back his tears and bit his lips. As Lucian's parents questioned whether his blood energy levels had reached the desired 0.85 mark, he felt a knot of anxiety form in his stomach. He sprinted to his room without wasting a moment, knowing that every second counted. With determination etched on his face, Lucian immediately began the bone-strengthening technique. The technique was a fusion of ancient yoga, martial arts, and judo, expertly adapted to create a powerful and effective method for beginners to build a solid foundation. Lucian took a deep breath before launching into an explanation of the cataclysmic event that had changed the world 3 centuries ago. The world had been plunged into chaos as monstrous creatures erupted from the sky and the ground, rendering modern weapons useless in the face of this unprecedented threat. Humanity had undergone a genetic mutation, unleashing unimaginable power and ushering in a new age of martial arts. But even with these newfound abilities, the human race had found themselves at a massive disadvantage against the monsters that threatened their very existence. Cities fell on a daily basis, and the human race was forced to retreat and regroup. After 3 consecutive rounds of the grueling bone-strengthening technique, Lucian's energy had been completely sapped. Despite his best efforts, his blood energy level had remained unchanged. Sweat poured down his face as he struggled to catch his breath, his determination unwavering even in the face of such adversity. He knew that his parents had sacrificed so much for him, and he refused to let them down. Grimacing with effort, he slowly rose to his feet, but as he stood there wavering on unsteady legs, he suddenly felt a wave of dizziness sweep around him. The world spun around him, followed by him collapsing onto the ground. Lucian woke up, but what he saw around him was not the familiar surroundings of his bedroom. Instead, he found himself in a desolate wasteland of his familiar nightmare. Lucian tried to wake himself up from this nightmare, but without avail, and then a zombie leapt toward Lucian, its gruesome mouth inches away from his face. In the past few nights, Lucian had run from this monster in terror, but this time, something inside him snapped. With a primal roar, he unleashed pushed all the energy he could muster into his legs and kicked the zombie away. Not content to stop there, Lucian grabbed a nearby rock and began beating the undead creature mercilessly, striking it again and again until its body finally gave way, leaving behind a strange black liquid that oozed toward him. As he watched the viscous liquid approach, a torrent of unfamiliar memories flooded Lucian's mind. Vivid and disorienting, he saw an unknown man speaking to a friend on the beach about his desire to join the elite defensive squad. The man soon donned a military uniform and became a member of the prestigious base number 1359, where he underwent rigorous training. Then a chaotic memory of the base being breached by monstrous creatures. In this sudden onslaught of memories, Lucian felt his heart racing, struggling to come to grips with the deluge of information. Lucian stood in disbelief, wondering how he had managed to retain the memories of the men he had just defeated in their zombie form. His hand trembled uncontrollably, unaware of the powerful aura surrounding him. Just as he was lost in thought, a sudden attack came from behind. Without missing a beat, Lucian spun around and with a single fluid motion, snapped the head off the zombie, with graceful movements sending its body collapsing into a heap on the ground. As the lifeless corpse began to dissolve into a dark viscous liquid, Lucian felt a strange sense of energy pulsing through his veins. With a sudden rush of power coursing through his body,
realized that he not only had the ability to retain the memories of those he defeated, but he could also absorb their power. Lucian couldn't believe what he was experiencing. He remembered that he was in the realm of his dreams. He took a deep breath and wondered only if everything was real. Despite the surreal nature of his dream, Lucian couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important he needed to discover. The memory of the military base number 1359 lingered in his mind once again, teasing him with the possibility of unlocking the secrets of this strange world. Suddenly, the dream became disoriented. He was pulled back into the real world where his sister was calling him to dinner. Lu Ying, the only younger sister of Lu Ying, took a closer look at Lu Ying, currently glistening with sweat. The chiseled body underneath the shirt made her blush. She quickly turned around and walked away. Lucian recollected the days of his youth when he and his sister were inseparable, but the dynamics between them shifted dramatically after the first evaluation test, which showed the result to be an astonishing blood energy level of 1 and power level of 100. It was not unexpected given that his sister was a prodigy destined for a brilliant future. Lucian took a deep breath, then he gazed upon his reflection in the mirror and beheld his exquisitely sculpted physique, feeling not a shred of exhaustion, and all the memories and power he gained from the dream were carried over, causing him to ponder if he could truly manifest the power of his subconscious dreams into the real world. Shrugging off his ruminations, Lucian walked over to the dinner table. At the table, he devoured the food, one bowl of rice after another, as if his gut were akin to a black hole. With nothing left on the table, he nervously withdrew his arms, but his father snatched his bowl and implored his mother to cook more rice and prepare additional dishes. The father seemed elated by his son's great appetite, and even his sister beamed a graceful smile. Following dinner, Lucian strode towards a nearby martial arts academy, where the instructor was a level 4 martial artist and a well-known figure in the city. The hierarchical structure of martial arts is as follows. A level 1 martial artist is deemed standard if their blood energy level is 1.5 and battle strength stands at 150. A level 2 martial artist surpasses this with a blood energy level of 15 and a battle strength of 1,500. A level 3 martial artist ups the ante with a blood energy level of 100,000, while a level 4 martial artist must exceed a blood energy level of 200,000 and a battle strength of 100,000. As Lucian approached the reception desk, he inquired about undergoing a test to assess his blood energy level and battle strength. Despite her awareness that he may not hail from a wealthy background, the receptionist maintained her professionalism. In the training room, Lucian rested his hand on a gleaming crystal ball to gauge his blood energy level. To his astonishment, it had skyrocketed to 0.963, a significant improvement from his previous score of 0.7. Sensing an opportunity to prove himself, he turned his attention to another device. Curious about his battle strength, he took a deep breath and assumed the combat form he had memorized from the recollections of 2 fallen soldiers. With fluid movements, he struck out, and his battle strength registered an impressive 113. The magnitude of his improvement within a mere hour left Lucian incredulous. He pondered what heights he could achieve if he spent a full 10 hours honing his abilities within the dream realm. As he lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling and counting a menagerie of more than 10,000 sheep, he found himself unable to fall asleep. Frustrated and restless, he rose and flipped on the light switch, resolving to undertake some additional exercises. He assumed his stance, preparing to perform the body-strengthening technique, but something felt odd. He executed unfamiliar movements, doing these movements subconsciously, as if channeling the memory of the fallen soldier. As Lucian continued to implement the new movements, he discovered that there were over 200 additional maneuvers. Every time he practiced, he felt a distinct surge of energy coursing through him. It was not only the body-strengthening technique that benefited from this new knowledge, his breathing technique also experienced a noticeable enhancement. A single session felt like it had granted him years of training results, leaving him astounded at his newfound prowess.
As Lucien completed the entire technique, he experienced a sensation akin to his soul being wrenched from his body. He felt extreme hunger, and his body's water content seemed to have evaporated. It was clear to him that regular food would not suffice. He required high-quality supplements to maintain his newfound strength. However, the cost of these supplements was astronomical, and he recognized that he would need to find a means of earning money to fund his ongoing growth. The next day, Lucien found himself in the school gym, ready for the combat lesson. The teacher, Mr. Young, was a level 2 martial artist who had faced a monster head-on and bore the scars to prove it. However, Lucien couldn't help but feel that the movements and techniques Mr. Young was presenting were too simplistic and lacked power compared to what he had learned in his dreams. As Mr. Young finished his demonstration, he called upon one of the most popular students in the school, Young, to spar with him. Young was not only handsome, but also the top student in his class, and his family was incredibly wealthy. Young had become quite the supplement connoisseur, and his blood energy level had soared to an impressive 1.2. After sparring, Mr. Young praised Young's movements, promising additional feedback after the class. But despite the teacher's compliments, Young couldn't help but sneer at the words in his mind. Mr. Young then asked if anyone was brave enough to spar with Young, but all the students avoided eye contact, leaving him disappointed. However, just as Mr. Young's disappointment began to show, his gaze met Lucien's piercing stare. In Lucien's eyes, Young could see a formidable aura, one that he had only ever witnessed in those who had tasted the bitter reality of death. Ming desperately tried to persuade Lucien to forfeit, fearing that his friend would suffer serious injuries. However, Lucien merely smiled and reassured Ming that he had nothing to worry about. As he stood in the gym, Young arrogantly raised his hand and sneered at Lucien, warning him to steer clear of his hand lest it shatters. Undeterred, Lucien graciously thanked Young for his advice and declared that he was ready to fight. Suddenly, Young lunged at him with the intent of ending the match with a single punch, but much to his astonishment, Lucien effortlessly evaded the attack and landed a precise blow to Young's face, sending him hurtling to the opposite end of the room. As Mr. Young frantically rushed over to check on Young's well-being, the other students looked on in shock and awe. It was inconceivable that Young had been defeated with a single punch.